this episode, we're going to talk about automation in a way that keeps it grounded, because for beginners it can sound like a magic shortcut where software simply fixes security for you. In reality, automation is best understood as a way to make good security behavior repeatable, fast, and consistent, especially when the environment is too large for humans to manage by hand. Modern enterprises have thousands of systems, constant configuration changes, and a steady stream of new vulnerabilities, so manual work becomes slow and uneven security is exactly what attackers exploit. Automation can help by turning decisions into controlled workflows, applying patches reliably, enforcing secure configuration baselines, and responding to common incidents without panic. We'll connect 5 key ideas that show up often in enterprise security conversations: infrastructure as code, IaC, triggers, patching, security orchestration, automation, and response, SOAR, and security content automation protocol, SCAP. The goal is to help you understand what each one is, why it matters, and how to use automation safely without creating new risks. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A strong way to approach automation is to start with the security problem it tries to solve, which is not a lack of tools, but a lack of consistency at scale. Humans are good at judgment and understanding context, but humans are not good at doing the same careful task thousands of times without mistakes, especially under time pressure. Security work often includes repetitive tasks like checking configurations, applying updates, rotating credentials, collecting evidence, and responding to alerts that follow familiar patterns. When those tasks are manual, teams tend to skip steps, delay work, or implement changes differently across systems, creating gaps. Automation addresses this by capturing the intended process in a form that can be executed the same way every time, with logging and accountability built in. Beginners sometimes worry automation removes the human from the loop, but the safest automation is usually human-guided, meaning humans design the rules, define the boundaries, and decide when automation is allowed to act automatically. The key is that automation should do the repetitive parts while humans handle exceptions and high-risk decisions. When you see automation as consistency and speed rather than magic, it becomes easier to use responsibly. Infrastructure as code, written as IaC, is one of the most important modern ideas for automation because it treats infrastructure setup as something you define in text and manage like software. Instead of clicking through interfaces and setting up servers, networks, or cloud resources by hand, you describe what you want, and tools create or modify the environment to match that description. The security value is that you can make infrastructure predictable, repeatable, and reviewable, which reduces the chance of misconfiguration. If the infrastructure is defined as code, changes can be tracked, reviewed, and rolled back, which is a stronger posture than undocumented manual changes. Beginners sometimes think IaC is only about speed, but it is also about control and evidence, because you can show what the environment is supposed to look like. IaC also supports standardization, because you can reuse secure templates, ensuring that new systems start with good defaults rather than risky ones. When applied well, IaC reduces the chaos of ad hoc infrastructure and makes security a built-in property rather than a last-minute add-on. It's also important to understand the subtle security risk IaC introduces, which is that automation can amplify mistakes. If you define something incorrectly and then deploy it across hundreds of systems, the impact is much larger than a one-off misclick. That means IaC security depends on review, testing, and guardrails, because code changes are powerful changes. Beginners should understand that a secure template is not automatically secure forever because requirements evolve and vulnerabilities are discovered. Secure IaC, therefore, includes maintaining templates, scanning them for risky patterns, and ensuring secrets are not embedded in code. It also includes enforcing separation of duties, so that no single person can create and deploy risky changes without oversight. Another key idea is that IaC enables rapid rebuild, which can improve incident response, because compromised systems can be replaced with known good versions rather than being patched in place. This changes how defenders think. Instead of repairing every individual machine, you can recreate safe infrastructure consistently. The outcome is a more resilient environment, but only if the code truly represents secure intent. Triggers are the mechanism that turn automation from a scheduled activity into an event-driven activity. A trigger is a condition that causes a workflow to start, like a new device joining the network, a new vulnerability being announced, a suspicious login being detected, or a configuration drift being identified. In security, triggers matter because threats move quickly, and you often want responses to start as soon as a signal appears. Beginners sometimes think triggers are only for emergencies, but triggers are also useful for everyday hygiene, like applying a baseline configuration to new systems automatically or checking compliance after a change. A well-designed trigger is specific enough to avoid constant false starts, but sensitive enough to catch meaningful events. Triggers also need context, because not every alert should cause the same response. A high-confidence threat on a critical server is different from a low-confidence anomaly on a test system. The safest approach is to start with triggers that launch investigation workflows, and then progressively allow more automated action as confidence and maturity increase. The main lesson is that triggers connect detection to action, which is how you reduce response time without relying on someone noticing a dashboard in time. Patching is one of the most obvious places automation helps, because the number of updates in an enterprise can be overwhelming. Patching means applying updates that fix vulnerabilities, bugs, and stability issues, and in security, the primary goal is to close known weaknesses before attackers exploit them. The challenge is that patching must be timely, but it must also be reliable, because broken updates can cause outages, and outages can create resistance to future patching. Automation helps by standardizing patch deployment, tracking which systems are up to date, scheduling updates in maintenance windows, and verifying outcomes consistently. Beginners sometimes imagine patching as a one-time thing, but patching is ongoing because new vulnerabilities are constantly discovered. Automation also supports prioritization by enabling different patch schedules for different risk levels, such as fast patching for exposed systems and planned patching for low-risk systems. The key is that automated patching reduces the time gaps that attackers exploit, while also reducing the human workload that causes delays. At the same time, safe automated patching acknowledges that not every system can be patched the same way. Some systems are critical and require careful testing, and some have dependencies that can break when versions change. That means automation should include staging, verification, and rollback planning. A beginner-friendly way to think about this is that patching is like changing parts on an airplane. You want it done promptly, but you also want checks that confirm the plane still flies afterward. Automation can run those checks more consistently than humans, such as confirming services are running, confirming systems rebooted properly, and confirming expected behavior continues. Another important aspect is reporting, because you need to know what was patched, what failed, and what remains vulnerable. Without reporting, patching becomes a hopeful activity rather than a measurable control. So patch automation is not just installing updates. It is managing a life cycle of planning, deployment, validation, and follow-up. Security orchestration, automation, and response, or SOAR, is a concept that ties many automated actions together into coordinated workflows, especially for incident response. When an alert comes in, there are often many steps defenders must do quickly: gather context, check logs, enrich indicators, identify affected assets, and decide on containment actions. If those steps are manual, responders lose time, and time is what attackers use to expand their access. SOAR systems aim to orchestrate those steps across tools and teams, so information gathering and routine actions can happen quickly and consistently. A beginner should see SOAR as a workflow engine for security operations, not as an autonomous security robot. It can take a detection and automatically pull relevant context, open a case, notify the right people, and even execute containment actions when policies allow. The safety of SOAR depends on clear playbooks, which are predefined response procedures, and on careful control of what the automation is allowed to do. When SOAR is mature, it reduces response time and improves consistency, but when it is poorly governed, it can create chaos by triggering disruptive actions too easily. One of the biggest beginner misunderstandings about SOAR is thinking that automating response means always blocking immediately. In reality, many organizations start by automating investigation and triage because that provides speed without causing accidental outages. For example, when an alert is triggered, an automated workflow can gather user information, device information, recent login activity, and related alerts, so the responder starts with context rather than confusion. As confidence grows, automation can be allowed to take limited containment steps, such as isolating a device or disabling a suspicious session, but only when signals meet certain confidence thresholds. Another key idea is that automation can document actions automatically, which helps with accountability and later review. This is important because response work is stressful, and humans forget details under pressure, but automation can preserve the timeline of what happened. Safe SOAR usage therefore emphasizes transparency, logging, and the ability to stop or roll back actions if the automation is wrong. The goal is not to remove humans, but to give humans a faster and clearer starting point and to reduce repetitive steps. Security Content Automation Protocol, or SCAP, connects strongly to the idea of automated configuration and compliance because it aims to standardize how security settings and vulnerabilities are described and assessed. For beginners, the simplest way to understand SCAP is as a family of standards that helps tools speak the same language about vulnerabilities and configuration states. If systems and scanners use consistent identifiers and consistent formats, organizations can more easily automate checking whether systems meet a baseline and whether known vulnerabilities are present. This helps reduce confusion where one tool calls a setting one thing and another tool calls it something else. SCAP also supports reporting and evidence because standardized descriptions make it easier to show compliance with a policy or a requirement. Beginners might see standards as abstract, but they matter in automation because automation depends on consistency. When you have consistent naming, consistent data formats, and consistent assessment content, you can automate checks across many systems without inventing custom logic for every case. In that sense, SCAP is like using standardized measurements rather than guessing lengths by eye. It makes large-scale assessment more reliable. Automation also changes how you think about security drift, which is the gradual movement away from secure configuration over time. Even if you start with a secure baseline, systems change, new software is installed, settings are modified, and exceptions are made. Without automation, drift often goes unnoticed until an incident occurs or an audit reveals gaps. With automation, drift can be detected quickly and corrected, or at least flagged for review. This is where IaC and SCAP ideas can reinforce each other. IaC helps define what the environment should be, while standardized assessment content helps verify whether it actually is. Triggers can start remediation workflows when drift is detected, and SOAR can help coordinate the response when drift is part of a security event. Beginners should appreciate that the enterprise problem is not creating a secure state once, but keeping it secure continuously. Automation is one of the few realistic ways to do that at scale, because manual checking cannot keep up with constant change. Finally, it is essential to talk about guardrails, because automation and security must be bounded to avoid doing harm while trying to help. Guardrails include approval steps for high-impact actions, limits on what automation can change, and clear rules about when automation must stop and ask for a human decision. Guardrails also include testing automation workflows in safe environments and gradually expanding their scope as confidence grows. Beginners should recognize that automated actions can create unintended consequences, like blocking legitimate users, breaking a critical service, or applying a configuration that conflicts with a specialized system. The safest automation is observant and reversible, meaning it logs what it did, it can be rolled back, and it can be paused when something unexpected occurs. Another guardrail is segmentation of automation privileges, so an automation system does not have unlimited access to everything. When guardrails are in place, automation becomes a reliable helper rather than a dangerous wildcard. The key lesson is that automation is power, and power requires governance and discipline. To conclude, Using automation to secure the enterprise is about turning good security intentions into consistent reality at a scale humans cannot manage alone. IaC helps define infrastructure in a repeatable and reviewable way, triggers connect detection and change events to automated workflows. Patching automation reduces vulnerability windows while improving reliability. SOAR coordinates response steps to reduce time and confusion, and SCAP helps standardize how systems are assessed and described so automated checks can work across many environments. The benefits are speed, consistency, and better visibility into what is happening, but the risks include amplifying mistakes and causing disruption if automation is not carefully governed. When you approach automation with guardrails, evidence, and incremental maturity, it becomes one of the strongest ways to improve security outcomes over time. The most important beginner takeaway is that automation does not replace thoughtful security decisions. It makes those decisions repeatable and timely. In a world where systems change constantly and attackers move quickly, that repeatability can be the difference between a small incident and a major breach.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.